Welcome to today's live stream. We're going to be hanging with Nick Newton and composer Richard Thompson as we tell you all about tomorrow's concert, which drops on the CSI digital platform, our season opening concert for The Dream Unfinished. It's going to be so good, and we are here to tell you all about it. We've got some more clips from the concert, and we're going to just get to know these two artists a little bit better. So I don't know. I say let's bring them on in, Laura. What do you say? Tell us, I've been so curious with all these recorded concerts that are happening this season. As a singer, as one of the performers, what is it like for you to be doing all this recording and not singing really for a live audience so much? What's that experience like?
It's half awkward, half not. It really depends on like how many cameras you have.
Sure.
So, uh, as you know, like we often record things for auditions and for like applications and stuff. And I feel like that's the most awkward because it's usually like you, a collaborative pianist, and like one person, or maybe not even anyone operating the camera. But with this project in particular, you had me, Blair, and two cameras that were like pretty great, and then you had Sam and the audio engineer. So like I honestly feel like the more people who are in the room, the more energy there is to feed off of, and it's really nice to have that. Like at HGO, we performed in like a big like hall or whatever, and they had like four different cameras, and they had like a lot of people there. So it really just depends on how many people who are in the room. But like I feel like this specific concert wasn't awkward. It was super like good energy, and like I really just try to work on my camera angles. I'm going to need to do that for the future because it's going to be used more and more.
Yeah. Nick, I do have a question for you actually about how kind of performance practice comes into this for you. And I feel like everyone is dealing with this in some varying degree. But do you find that having less of an audience presence, say for example, just, an iPhone
Mhm.
is privy to your performance. Do you find that it changes how you perform? Does it make you like more or less nervous? Does it make you because I know like for me personally, when I don't have anybody around, I feel like I can let loose a little bit more.
Mhm.
But and I'm not like as nervous that people are like, seeing if there's something in my teeth. I don't know. Do you find do you find that it changes or affects how you go about just your performance?
That's a good question. No, but honestly, I feel a little more self-conscious because it's like I can't think like what is the camera thinking about me? You know what I mean? But like I think while I am while I am staring at the camera, I'm like, oh, like how do I look? Whereas when someone else is operating the camera, they can like capture and be specific on like what they focus on. And like with another person operating the camera, they can do close-ups, and you can choose like if you really want to be serious, you stare right into the lens. And like generally generally when you're recording by yourself, it's just like one like flat, well, not one flat dimension, but like
I know
just
it's
landscape mode.
so yeah, I
So I
get it.
focus much more on working the stage, if you will, because if it's just one dimensional, one angle, then it doesn't it like yes, you can do a lot with facial expressions, but also I feel like it's important to physically portray what you're saying, because that also keeps the audience engaged subconsciously because their eyes have like places to move
Yeah.
to go
Well,
along with you.
you find that that is even more important now as a performer, considering we're in the digital age, like having really just like kind of, I guess, movement oriented or dynamic performances. Is that something you think is more important now?
For sure. That's one thing I've been working on a lot at HGO. I'm a studio artist there, and the stage is pretty big. So, I people have told me that they enjoy my facial expressions for a lot of my performing life, but once you get to big stages, they can't see your face. So I'm really focusing with, I take acting lessons almost every week, and I work with the movement coach very
Right.
often to try try to expand my repertoire of movement. And we try to focus on like soft movement and light or and hard movement and fast movement and slow movement. And it's really fun and interesting because you have much more to play with and choose from rather than, oh, the character would maybe do this, or
Very
just serving pies as, a lot of us do.
Interesting. Interesting.
amazing.
Well, speaking of facial expressions, I think it's time for another clip. Let's play a little bit of your Howard Swanson song, which is epic.
Aw.
This is a clip from the song "The Negro Speaks of Rivers," and it is an incredibly powerful song that Nick sang. So we gonna embarrass you right now here.
I've known rivers. I've known rivers. Ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. I've known rivers. I've known rivers, ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your pieces that we're doing on on our concert tomorrow? Oh my gosh, that's tomorrow. Um, and kind of what they mean to you, and like I feel like most composers, the text speaks to them in some way. Otherwise, you wouldn't pick it. But can you talk to us a little bit about kind of why you picked the texts and why you decided to set them the way you did, and kind of that process for you?
Yes. Well, the whole cycle sort of happened because I was explaining to Sam on Thursday that the second song in the cycle, Love's Apotheosis, was the first song I ever wrote. And
Hmm.
when I started writing it, I didn't know if I could write a song. But once I started doing it, it was fun. So I actually bought the complete poems of Paul Laurence Dunbar. I still have it. And in the index, I put a tick beside all the poems I found interesting.
Oh,
So I just chose Love's Apotheosis as it was actually written for a competition. For it was a jazz composition competition. And that year they wanted a piece for a singer plus a jazz group. And I had a short
Mhm.
list of about maybe a dozen poems. And I just liked the words of that one. I made a start with that one. And after I did the first one, I think I performed it with some other pieces on one of my concerts. I thought, well, I should do another one. So the second one I did was We Wear the Mask. So after doing that, I was pretty unstoppable. I just kept going and I found two other ones. There's one called One Life, and I did Sympathy. And I thought, well, that's four songs. That'll make a nice cycle. And I was quite happy with it. At that time, I was living in Brooklyn. And one day, one of my colleagues just walked by and he started reciting this poem, which I didn't know. And I said, well, I wonder what this is. And from the look on his face, I figured out it was a poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar.
mm,
So I went to my book, and there it was. And I thought, well, it's about dawn. Dawn is a beginning. So that might be a nice way to start the cycle. Also, it creates this nice sort of arc because dawn, the start of the day, it's full of hope, etc., etc. And throughout the cycle, there's this transition. So you end up with sympathy, which is kind of dark, right? So I thought, well, I've got this progression from light to dark. Aha, let me call the whole thing the shadow of dawn. You start with something bright and it gets progressively darker. So when I said we wear the mask, as I was saying to Sam, I didn't know about the other settings by other composers, which is true of all the poems I sat back then, which was actually a blessing because that way I wasn't aware of other people's work. I was less self-conscious. I just wrote what I heard.
Right.
So,
Right.
one thing I didn't say to you on Thursday about We Wear the Mask, the first version was from my jazz group. So at the end of the song, when the singer sings We Wear the Mask and repeats it, in the jazz version, I got the two horn players, tenor, saxophone, and trumpet, sort of honking in a sort of avant-garde jazz way to depict a descent into madness,
Mhm.
which you can't do with piano and voice. It doesn't
Right.
work. But that I had to miss that out. But
How
it was
interesting.
good.
Yeah, so great. We have an excerpt. We have Dawn here that I'd like to share with everybody, and it's performed by Jasmine and Rolando on this concert. And let's give it a listen.
Wow.
Such an amazing song. 4 lines of poetry.
Yeah,
You
that was a strange thing.
spin it into this 3 minute long beauty of color and harmony, and it moves by so slowly, and the last line is like
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
funny. It's funny hearing this song after so long. So when I hear it, I picture where I lived in Brooklyn and my manuscript score a
It's
while ago.
great. Like we said on Thursday, and what we learned about you, you can totally hear the jazz influences and all the really interesting harmonies, and it's just
Gorgeous.
yeah,
Absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you
yeah,
so much.
yeah.
Could like snuggle up and live in those harmonies.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
beautiful. So as we were, this is about kind of the programming of the concert. So Sam and I deliberated for a long time about how we wanted to program this season, knowing it was going to be digital, and trying to address a lot of the and racial disparities and everything that are going on in the world right now, that are being brought very present in the world right now. And so we talked a lot about, you know, how we as an arts organization can help make an impact and how we can, you know, just broaden our scope. And so we wanted to kind of pose the question, both of you, and Maestro, we'll ask you first, is like, what what is the importance of a project like this particularly, or what in it is important for you maybe?
That's a really profound question. I'll try and answer it as best as I can. Well, we hear this word inclusion a lot.
Yeah.
So, for me, the first thing to think about is the African American presence historically in this country. Of course, the beginnings of it are pretty deplorable and violent and traumatic, etc. But the fact is that the African American contribution to American life is very significant in all kinds of ways. So I grew up in Scotland, so I saw America from a European point of view. Because if you're in the middle of something, you're not really so aware of what you're in the middle of. You can't see it objectively.
Yeah.
But living abroad and coming here, I saw life in America very differently. So we're dealing with classical music, because this is such a huge subject. Let's narrow it down to classical music, right? We're not dealing with science or whatever else. So there have been lots of significant contributions by African American musicians as composers and performers. So it's important to let people know that these people exist, because as you can see in the media, they don't deal with what we call serious culture. So people don't know that people like me exist, or people like William Grant Still, etc. And what they have to say is a special perspective of life in America. It's quite different to anybody else's. And for the sake of artistic honesty and clarity, people should know about these different points of view. One of the things I often say to people is that America is the most diverse country on the face of the earth. The whole world is here. I remember seeing that when I lived in New York, walking down Broadway, going shopping one Saturday afternoon, and just seeing people walking around. I thought, my God, the whole world is here. There's somebody looks Latin American, somebody looks European. The whole world is just there intermingling and going about their daily lives. But that should be reflected in all of our arts, that level of diversity. So I'm doing my bit from my perspective, and I just think it's important that people realize that these different voices, these different perspectives exist, so they can create a complete, honest picture of what life in America really is.
Yeah.
I want to hear what Nick has to say, but I just want to tack onto that. We in one of our composer interviews with Sean Apebolo a couple of weeks ago, we were discussing just how it's just a matter of reflecting the stories telling the stories that reflect the true diversity that exists within this
Yes,
country.
exactly.
It's really that simple.
Yeah,
And
it's not hard. You're right. It's very simple. It's just real life.
yeah, exactly.
Same question directed to you, like what is the importance of kind of this overall, but also this project for
Mhm.
you?
Um, to echo some of the sentiments that Dr. Thompson said, it was important for me for that representation, but from another angle, I personally love Black art song so much, and I feel like it is underrepresented and underrated a lot of times when you hear a Black composer's premiering something or somebody's performing works by a Black composer. Most of the time, people choose spirituals, which is like fine, but I think this project gave me a chance to showcase art song and like how um, how like different it can, like the repertoire, how vast the repertoire of works is in the Black canon, if you will. And I tried to choose pieces that really spoke to the moment. I know this whole season kind of centers around identity, and the first piece, the Negro Speaks of Rivers, there's actually a cool clip of Langston Hughes talking about that when he wrote that poem. He was like really young, I think like in high school or something, or fresh out of high school, and his father lived in Mexico, and he was taking a train down to go visit him, and he just started to think about um, Black people's relationship to rivers, to bodies of water, and being sold down the river, and or living in a society where the water is a really important source of life, and and a sustaining feature of their life. And I don't know, it's and the second piece is kind of like a call to action, and it's kind of speaks to the moment because a lot of things are going on right now in this country or around the world actually. And I kind of wanted to just it's a call to do better. It's a call. It was originally a call to realize the American dream, but in this moment, I think now we're finding specific ways to not just to realize a dream, but to just help make life better for marginalized people, and
This
allow
is
them to flourish.
Yeah, we're talking about Plain Chant for America, right? The William
Yes,
Grant,
yes.
the other big piece that Nick brought to this program. Yeah, hit the nail on the head. And you and I were having some conversations while we were getting everything ready, and you brought up a great point of, I mean, the two pieces that you chose are incredible, and they reflect the times. At the same time, but going back to what you said about spirituals, there is such a vast wealth of repertoire out there by Black composers, and not all of it centers around um, being Blackness. There's plenty of art song out there by Black composers that you wouldn't necessarily even know. There's no defining features about it, and that goes back to Richard's point about it just needs to be part of the canon, just like literally all the other art song out there by
Yeah.
white composers or any other composers for that matter. Um, with that said, the stuff that you brought to this program is so timely and speaks directly to the moment and that we're living through, and I mean, very grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
for having me.
yeah. So
So
I
grateful for
I like to ask this question, Nick. If you were running your own company,
Ooh.
tell us what the ideal art song organization or opera company or whatever would look like with Nick Newton as general manager, artistic director, everything.
Well, I have zero experience. I have low level administrative experience at the front desk. Um, so honestly, I couldn't even imagine. That's really interesting that you say that because I feel like we're in a time where uh, people feel the need to like to be leaders or to take up a cause. And I see my role as helping facilitate other people who like giving resources to people who actually have the passion but also the talent behind them to be successful in positions like that. But if I were a general manager, you would see the company would probably be like run by women. Like my favorite places that I've worked, the smoothest like places I've worked have like had a lot of women in leadership positions. This is not to say like the places that have men like don't run smoothly and all that, but I think be, and I obviously can't speak for women, but I think from talking to my women friends, there's a lot more things women have to think about in their daily life in general. They have to pay attention to much more things, and it's shown in their work ethic and when they're given leadership positions. So yeah, I think that's one of the main things. You would obviously see lots of Black people, lots of people from various ethnic backgrounds, so that we're able to tell the stories of people who don't get their stories told often enough. But I would also make sure that it was told from their perspective, because you know it gets a little witchy when you choose to pick a certain topic that's very culture specific, and then you have people who are outside of that culture telling that story. Um, I don't know. It gets a little.
That doesn't make sense, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like the ideal company. When are you starting it?
I will hopefully. I would like to be booked at a company like this, and help promote. But yeah, I don't see any plans right now of doing something like that.
Never say never.
Takes special people like you to do so much amazing work, and I really have to applaud you for everything, because it is much more work than a lot of people think. So this is why I stay on the performance side of things.
Thank you. It is true. It is true. There's a lot. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into this, but it's our pride and joy. So and exactly what you said. It's a goal of ours to provide resources and provide opportunities, and to amplify all sorts of people with all sorts of experiences and tell those experiences. And Art Song is one of the perfect vehicles to do that. Truly,
For sure.
It's such a trope for how much we say it's a niche sort of category, but it is so universal, and it truly is one of the best vehicles to deliver these superhuman emotions through storytelling.
I will
Yes.
even take it a step forward and say it's the future. It's like it gives people a chance to dip their toe into the classical music scene without having the commitment of like 3 or 4 hour long opera.
Right.
And it also can more easily access certain communities. That's another thing that my company would have is, there's community outreach. That term is thrown around a lot, but fantastic performer Julia Bullock once said, "You're either connected to the communities or you're not." So I would make sure that, like, in programming pieces, like the works would specifically speak to those places, not just to widen their audience and make more money from ticket sales, but because singing, music, art song, opera, it does so much for the soul. It can do so much for a community, and yeah, sorry, it's getting a little
Okay.
passionate, but yeah.
Preach.
You
Preach.
you are absolutely like spot on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Richard, what do you feel as a composer, and you as a composer of a very diverse body of genres and repertoire, and instrumentation. What do you feel is unique about art song? What are you able to say as a composer with art song that you maybe can't or can't say as well when you're writing an instrumental sonata or even an opera? Like, what's the difference for you?
Well, you just used the most important phrase. You talked about storytelling.
Mm.
So it's the good thing with art song is that it doesn't involve many performers. So you can put on a recital with just two people. If you've got a chamber orchestra, you've got maybe 16, 17 people, string quartet, all these things. But the intimacy is really important. You've got two people telling stories, and the stories are about human experience, the human condition. So straight away, you're able to reach people in a special, very personal way.
Right.
So I think once people hear a setting of a thought-provoking poem, it will stay with them in a special way that an abstract instrumental piece will not, because you got this dimension of words and a story about somebody's experience, whatever it could be. It could be something tragic, something humorous, whatever. It's a really direct way of communicating with people. And because an art song will be relatively short, not a 30-minute or 20-minute sonata or symphony, whatever, it's easy to assimilate that and to think about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah. Laura, you want to say
Oh,
something?
no, I just wanted to ask both of you, Maestro, we can start with you. Just in terms of you have this classically trained composer, singer, but you also have like your own experiences and your own stories that you want to represent. So have you found that you have had to kind of forge your own path to create your voice, or have you had like role models, mentors, or people that you look up to or you can communicate with, who have helped you along the way, or have you kind of had to go at it on your own? I'm curious about that path for both of you. So Maestro, if you want to start
Well,
with
that's a
that.
great question because for years I was totally concerned with playing the piano. Looking back at it, I wrote my first piece, I was about 10. So I always had this connection with composition, but I spent so many years practicing 5 hours a day at the piano. I didn't think about it too much. So when I wrote my first song, well, of course, based on my undergrad experience, I knew songs of Schubert, Schumann,
Sure.
Ravel, Debussy, Brahms, etc. But I wasn't thinking about any of those people. I simply wrote what I heard, and I didn't follow the conventional uh, uh, path of taking a PhD in composition. I applied to one place, it didn't work out, and I said, well, to hell with it, basically. But I just wrote what I heard, and I realized it was really important to do that because if you think about if you think there's always a difficulty with being a creative artist in any genre. Of course, we all have heroes and role models, but if you think about them too much, you can lose yourself. You end up trying to write or perform like somebody you like. It doesn't work. So it really has to come from within you. So I just wrote. I just wrote down what I heard. It was that simple, and I just wanted to see how it would turn out. I didn't think about, well, there's the songs of Brahms, there's the songs of Samuel Barber and all these other people. I didn't know much about that music at that time. I just, as I said, I sat at the piano. I set the melody based on how I felt the words, and just did it piece by piece. I just totally concerned with what I heard and felt in the moment. Then afterwards, I go back and say, well, the form here isn't so good. Snip it here, edit here, whatever.
Mm.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Well, no, because I mean, some people, some composers have, mentors or colleagues or even like their kids or their students or something who really play into how they go about their work. And other people, like you, Maestro, are just like, I am who I am. This is what I have to put out into the world. This is my experience. This is my voice. This is what I have to say. And I am not a composer by any stretch of the imagination, but if I were to be, I feel like I would probably do the same because like it's your story. It's your experience. And I feel like that's so, so beautiful that you were able to go at it in a really like uninhibited and just like presentational way that is just you. And I think that's really incredible and very inspiring to me just as a person. So
Well,
that's
thank you. One thing to add is that I really didn't have a choice
yeah.
because if you look at conservatory composition programs, you get this pantheon of the dead greats, right? So, based on my musical experience, I wanted to combine my classical experience with my jazz experience, and I didn't know of anybody who was doing that. Because in the academy, you say, well, I want to compose, I want to combine the European tradition with some jazz. Quite often, they look at you askance in jazz, or they think it is not serious music.
Yeah.
So I didn't. For a while I looked around and said, well, who is there who could show me the way? And I realized, well, I got to find my own way. I just didn't see anybody. So it was by default, really. So I got to be strong and do what I do, and that's the big thing is to have the strength, to have the courage to be different.
100%.
That's hard. It really is hard because if you
Yeah.
sound like somebody else, you got the security. Well, it sounds a bit like Puccini, sounds a bit like this person. So you know that whatever you do will not sound bad. You can say, well, it sounds like somebody else. You got a certain kind of security. But when you do something that's your own, that doesn't sound like anybody else, then people will say, well, it's crap. I've never heard this before. It's copy any good. So you got to deal with those sort of things. If you write like Puccini, nobody's going to say it sounds like crap. Because that's simple, right?
Yeah.
They mightn't like it, but they won't disparage you completely because you've got a model. If your model is yourself, then you're just that bit more vulnerable and you need to be that bit more thick skinned. It's kind of hard.
Yeah.
But I'm used to it now, so it's okay.
I think that is a really good perspective for all of us. That is, I'm gonna carry those words with me. That's I am. I really am,
Well,
Sam.
that's
Can we
good.
put
Thank you.
little testimonials on our website?
Sure. Yes. Absolutely.
But Nick, I wanted to ask you the same question. Is just like, you have your experience as a classical singer, and you also have your experiences as a person. And I guess how has that sort of informed your performance? But also, are there other people who you look up to, or role models, or colleagues that you're like, yes, you're doing the thing, and you want to follow suit, or have you kind of forged your own path for yourself?
Um, I've had a lot of help along the way, for sure. I've been incredibly privileged along the way to connect with so many people. And um, one of my possibility models is Reginald Smith Jr. He was so warm and just nice from the first time I met him, and he's been somebody I go to on a regular basis to talk about the career. I actually don't talk to very many people about it. It's just like my personality. So yeah, he's been a nice sense of support, and he actually just did a fantastic recital yesterday with HGO Digital, so you should check that out. But yeah, he in terms of like technically singing, interpreting singing, he's been a big help in terms of like how to interpret spirituals and black art song, and also he just knows a lot more about the repertoire than I do. So he's been a big help. Also, I look to Jesse Norman because I mean,
He's a
the
legend.
pinnacle. Just
Yeah.
Say no more. Say no more.
her ability to synthesize like the text and the music and like just truly deep rooted interpretations and personal like wow, she's such a great role model as well. Um, yeah, I'll just say those two. There's so many people who I don't know personally or have the chance to talk to on a regular basis, but I'll just say those two.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent people.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Um, well, any parting thoughts, gentlemen? I want to play everybody out with one more clip, and before we hop on off. But any parting thoughts from either of you?
Well, I really respect and thank you for this project because it's something we need to have, and I feel very honored to be a part of it. Of course, there are lots of composers nationwide, and I'm glad to be a part of this. And I've heard a few excerpts, and I'm really excited about hearing the whole concert. And it's nice to see that people are making these positive strides and steps in these very tumultuous times.
Right.
It also reminds us, I think, of the importance and the purpose of the arts, which quite simply is to remind people of their humanity. So it's our responsibility as serious artists, not just musicians, painters, playwrights, actors, sculptors. It's our duty to keep reminding people of their humanity, because as we all know, as we all see, there are many forces at work that are trying to suppress those feelings for gain, political and financial gain. So we got a big responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Every time I have to follow up him, I'm just kind of like, should I just leave? I also want to say thank you so much again to all the fantastic work you're doing. I'm so excited to see the entire season, like to see um, every group of people that we're focusing on is so exciting because it's them telling their stories from their expected perspective, but also like even in like the Eastern European concert, like I'm really excited about that. Just the idea that we're able to you're able to program pieces that may or may not be done often enough and giving more voice to those people, it's one of my favorite things ever. And also I am so happy to be here with my former professor Richard Thompson. Fantastic, looking forward to when we'll be able to collaborate. But yeah, I it's such a pleasure like seeing him. I haven't seen him since 2016 actually when I graduated from San Diego State. Also, hey Megan, I saw she wrote a comment. She was one of
Yes.
our colleagues from San Diego State. So, yeah, this is amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again, Nick Newton and Richard Thompson, for speaking with us this hour.
So
My
much.
great pleasure.
Yes.
Very nice
Thank you
to
for
meet you.
having us.
All
And
right.
get the all access pass.
It's definitely the best deal. So if you're hooked on CSI, get yourself that all access pass. And you can see Nick Newton on
Will
CSI.
do. Will do.
Yes, yes. Okay, everybody, we're gonna play you out with one more super fun song performed by Nicole Heaston and Blair
Yes.
Salter. It is from William Grant Still's amazing song cycle, Songs of Separation. The song is called Parted. And we hope to see you all tomorrow and all throughout the week on CSI Digital streaming the concert for The Dream Unfinished. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.
Bye.
She wrapped her sword in a lace of prize, with the prime descent to pin it. And I thought I was gaining a fearsome prize, so I sank my soul to win it. We wed and parted on her complaint, above a bit of butter. Though I'll confess that I